Welcome to the Decentralized Opportunity Podcast, a weekly podcast discussing innovative ideas in business and technology from unconventional and often overlooked sources. I'm your host, Tanner Lytle, here with the other host,
Wyatt Carson. Tanner, hi. Sorry I missed last week, but super excited. More interviews, a really cool one that I personally know Tanner's very excited about himself to learn more from. But who do we have on the docket, Tanner?
Yeah, this week we're joined by DJ from VacayHQ. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, like Wyatt said, I'm very excited to talk to you. Just a quick preface. I love the idea of like travel hacking, using credit and all these things to get all these rewards, but I am the absolute worst at it. I have one credit card pretty much that I put everything on. We do all of our bills, put it on the credit card, auto pay each month, but I'm only getting just like some cash back. And like I don't travel or getting any of the perks. And like I want to start traveling more. I want to start doing vacations. I need your help. I desperately need your help.
Taking notes here. Yes. Yeah. No, I got you covered, my friend. Travel hacking is not easy. It's a little bit intimidating when you first get started. You have to be kind of like an ultra nerd, like I was, and we'll probably get into it, but let's just say there were many spreadsheets, there were a lot of diagrams, and it got real geeky there. So yeah.
Yeah. Can you kind of explain what travel hacking is for someone who's unfamiliar?
Yeah. What's surprising is like most of the country doesn't really know what travel hacking is, but it's basically just getting free travel or highly reduced travel with credit card reward points is typically how it's done. And this is like a uniquely kind of American phenomenon. If you talk to other people around the world, they're like, what do you mean you get all these points and you can go on vacation for free with your credit cards, But here in the States, banks entice people to sign up for credit cards with these awesome rewards. And it kind of, I would say it really kicked into high gear around 2016 when Chase released they called it like the first viral credit card because it just went crazy. It was the Chase Sapphire Reserve. They gave you 100,000 points and you could just go nuts, So that's when I got into travel hacking and I haven't looked back since. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm curious. So before we get into details of travel hacking and I want to dive, well, Tanner's excited about the travel. I'm also fascinated with another kind of service you provide, which is kind of credit consulting for those who may not be at the wonderful, beautiful 800 credit score. But I'll dive into that in a bit too. But let's talk about travel a little bit more. How much have you traveled? And I know that's a very vague statement. Let's talk out of the country. How often have you been out of the country? In the last, so you said you started travel hacking in 2016. What have you done vacation-wise since 2016?
Well, that's a good one. So it's funny because in 2016, I had like a career. I was working in tech sales for this really awesome company called Particle. They're still around, a good group of folks. So it's fun. I had more money and less time than I was used to having. To answer your question, I think I mostly travel within the States, and my favorite trip has been to Mexico. If you get a chance to go to one of these all-inclusive resorts in Mexico, specifically the Hyatt all-inclusives are the ones that I've really enjoyed. So I've done a couple of those. I went to Jamaica, but I'm really ready to go on like another big international trip. My significant other, she really wants to go to the UK, and she's never been over there. And to answer your question about how often I've traveled, well, just in general, because my obsession with travel goes back to like growing up as a kid in Texas, where I didn't go anywhere. I just kind of went around. I grew up in San Antonio. The first I ever went was like Houston, so that's like 3 hours away. Austin was right up the street. And when I left Texas to go to college, I went to California, Bay Area, and I met people from all over the world, right? And I was like, wait, where you're from here? And and they would show me pictures and I'd be like, oh my God, I got to see this. So that's when I got the travel bug. It just so happened that in college, I met someone who was in a band, or he started a band. And I joined the band and we got to travel all around the world in that band. So I went, to a lot, Japan, definitely all over the UK and Europe, all over America, Australia. So I did a lot of traveling, and then I was a flight attendant too. Uh, so India, I went a lot of different places, and so now that's why I'm like, I'm ready for another big trip. But I've actually done a lot of international traveling. It's time to do some more though, so I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, and travel just for you, whatever you want to do on your time frame. Love it.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Because traveling with a band, you're right. It's a very different schedule for
Oh, I
sure.
bet.
Yeah,
Well, I really
hardcore.
resonated with what you were saying. You had you had more money, but you didn't have the time to do it. And that's
Hmm.
been so much of my problem too, because I had my company for a long time and I'd work 7 days a week, and I didn't see the ocean until just a couple of years ago. And this is a very Nebraskan thing because I'm this literally landlocked as much as you can be
Yes.
landlocked. But I never saw the ocean. So it wasn't until I think 4 or 5 years ago I took my first real big trip where I was gone 3 weeks, drove like halfway across the country from Nebraska over to like Massachusetts, saw the ocean for the first time. I'm just like, I need to start actually traveling more, start doing these bigger vacations, start doing this stuff. And
Yeah.
like you're saying, like we talked about before, I feel like I'm just not using the tools at my disposal at all to really leverage
It's
that.
not your fault though. It's not your fault. It's because in order for you or most people to kind of figure this stuff out, it really helps to have someone sit down with you and be like, "Tell me where you're trying to go. Okay, let me map this out for you. Which card should you get? And well, how are you going to get the sign up bonus? And how are you going to make that, into a business class trip?" It just helps to have someone who can talk you through it the first couple of times, and then boom, after that, you got it. So it's not your fault. It is a little bit complicated, but that's kind of what we're doing at VacayHQ is to just make it really, really simple. We'll talk about that later, but yeah, I want more people to be able to travel because the tools, like you said, are right there. They're just if you imagine what the problem is, like most people are, in fact, we do a lot of research at Vacay, and half of all millennials and Gen Z have gone into debt to pay for travel, right? So like the pain is great. It's so great the need to travel that they're willing to go into debt for it, and yet they don't have to because this whole other system exists of travel hacking, right? And if someone were just to kind of bring those two together, there's all this like pent up demand, and then here's the solution. You just got to bring them together, and that's what we're trying to kind of do in the middle there.
That's great. So let's talk about VacayHQ a little bit. Explain for the listeners, what is VacayHQ and what are you attempting to do here? I mean, obviously travel hacking knowledge, but the Vacay itself, what's your goal with this? How does it work?
Okay. So we'll take it from two perspectives. First perspective is if you're a user coming to the site, what are you coming to the site for? You're coming to the site to figure out how to do free travel. And you want it as simple as possible. So we're a credit card recommendation tool specifically focused on like travel cards. So if you've ever used Credit Karma, how they have Credit Karma, NerdWallet, there's a lot of credit card recommendation tools. For whatever reason, they're not particularly sophisticated in terms of the questions they ask you. So like they don't ask you if lounge access is important. They don't ask you like how many times you'd like to travel per year, or which airlines you like, or which hotels you like to stay at. They're kind of just like pretty basic. What's your credit score? You're looking for a travel card, you're looking for a 0% interest card. Okay, here's 100 of them. And people kind of go, thank you, but I don't know what to do after this. So they just kind of get decision fatigue and click away and think about it later. So we're making it super simple. You give us your preferences. We know your credit score because we will have you. So we have a really great relationship with Equifax. I want to give a shout out to Equifax. And so we're able to pull in your credit score to make sure that you're not applying for cards that you can't get, right? So we only recommend cards that are a good fit for you and fit your credit score. And then we just tell you exactly which card to get and when to get it, that so you can go on your trip. And you'd be surprised, like one card can send you on that round trip to some faraway place. Just like one card can do that. You just got to know which one.
Okay. Okay.
Now
So, and
that's the tool. That's if you
right.
come to the site as a user. Now there's a deeper purpose. Would you like me to?
Okay.
Would you
Of
like me to talk about
course.
this? Now the users aren't going to care so much about this, but this is where my heart's at. I am just extremely passionate about personal finance, helping people understand credit, helping people understand how to like untangle this web of confusion that usually surrounds them when it comes to finance. I grew up in a family that just was not that great with money. Really awesome, very nice people, not that great with money. And so somewhere along the way, I don't even know how, like I should have ended up just like them. But maybe somebody put a book in my hand. I don't know what it was, but my trajectory changed and I started paying attention to this stuff. And I realized after reading book after book after book after book and like studying it, they all kind of say the same thing. You can really boil down personal finance into like a few simple rules. And once I learned those rules, I was like, this isn't hard. And if you imagine it this way, imagine that you have a superpower where you have the ability to like change people's futures. How in the world could you keep that to yourself? So once you like understand how to do this stuff, you have to share it. It's like almost a responsibility and a privilege at that point. So I really built VacayHQ. Don't tell anyone, okay? It's about the travel, but really it's about helping people improve their credit because in order to travel, you need to get the best cards. And in order to get the best cards, you have to have a good score. So what we've done is incentivize people to care about their credit because it links it to a goal that they actually have, which is to travel. That's our secret sneaky mission.
I love it. So how is it that credit now, for someone who may not know, is actually like a score is generated for a user? Can you kind of explain that a little bit?
Oh, yeah. So there's these entities called credit bureaus. And to understand credit bureaus, I mean, this is kind of a fun story, so I'll tell it like quickly. But back in the day, there were all these stores. You know, you go to a town and there'd be like the town drugstore and the town grocery store, and people used to walk in and be like, "Hey, Jerry at the butcher shop, you know me, I'm down the street. Can I just put this on credit? I'll come, when I get paid, I'll come back and pay you." So they used to keep a list of all the people who like owed the grocery store or the whatever. Well, not everybody paid. And so that grocery store would be like, "Oh, you don't want to pay, you don't want to give credit to Tom, okay? Because Tom's not going to pay." Well, that's fine for that grocery store. Imagine this is 100 years ago. This is before the internet, right? What if Tom just goes to another town? Nobody knows Tom. Tom's got a fresh, clean slate. "Hey, I'm Tom. Can I get several steaks? Thank you. I will pay." Um, what these two brothers did, or I don't know if they were brothers actually, they were two partners. They went around and collected all of the creditors from the different grocery stores and the different stores in the area. They got those lists of people who did and did not pay. And in exchange for giving them your list, they would give you everyone else's list, right? And so now you would know, hey, if Tom comes to town, oh, watch out for this guy, Tom. And that's how kind of these credit bureaus started. They eventually, of course, started selling this information, all of that. And this is what became not your credit score. We're talking about your credit report. Whenever you ask for a credit report, it's just going to be a bunch of like your accounts and whether you're current on them and all that stuff. Okay. Now, the thing everybody cares about is your credit score. So how did this come to be? So it's cool to take a report and look at it and be like, okay, they seem like if they've had a mishap here or there, but I think they're a good creditor. Everybody loves things being reduced to like the simplest form possible, right? So a number. If you could reduce this to a number, that would be great. So there's these algorithms that sit on top of the credit report and they crunch all the data and they spit out a number. And you do not exactly know what the algorithm is doing. It's kind of a black box, a little bit of a black box, but they give you a high level of the 5 things that matter. But suffice to say, you have your credit report with all your data in it and whether you've been current and all that. And then you have the layer that sits on top that's crunching all that and spitting out a number. And that's your FICO score or your Vantage score. Those are the companies that do that sort of thing. Okay, was that what other questions do you have? Okay.
I've never heard that story about going to grocery stores or whatever. And that was amazing. Great, good anecdote. Right. Love it. So you fell into, we understand your love for travel. How do you gain a love for credit though? I mean, I understand you learned personal finance and that's a valuable skill to have, but how do you suddenly realize, you know what? I want to learn about everything there is to know about credit cards too. That feels like a weird hobby to me. So how did you get into credit?
Oh, it's going to make total sense. It's all going to come together because travel hacking is literally what made me care about credit, which is why I know it works. I wanted to make sure when I applied for this next card, I wanted to make sure I was going to get it, which means I needed to know what my credit score was, first of all. So now I'm like monitoring my credit, which it's not something I would do before. I would kind of just like hope it was okay. But sometimes you don't want to look at it because you're like, I don't know. So now I was like, all right, I need to pay attention to this. And then I was like, well, my score's here, but if I want it to go up, what do I need to do? So you start reading articles and you're like, okay, that makes sense. Because again, it's not really that complicated. You just, once you look at it, you're like, oh, here's what I need to do. And so I started doing those things. Sure enough, my score went up. And once it's up and you get your next card, you want to be able to get your next card and the card after that and the card after that. So you need to maintain a good score. And that's how I fell in love. Well, that's 60% of how I fell in love with credit. The other 40% was I love helping people. And maybe it's flip-flop. Whenever I could tell someone about how credit works, you would see their eyes light up. And especially like people in my community and my family and stuff, they'd be like, oh, I always thought credit was something, these credit scores were something that was happening to me. I didn't think I could have control over it like that. And so they would feel this sense of like, oh, this is within my power, empowerment, I guess you could say. And seeing that kind of take place is addictive. Like I just love it. And so that's the other part of the reason is I got really, really good at credit so I could answer everybody's questions. So I could be the go-to person when people have questions about credit because I just love, helping in that way. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. So you mentioned the algorithm itself is kind of a black box and you almost have to kind of game it a little bit, I would say. So what are some of those big tips if someone looks at their credit score now and isn't happy with that number? Let's say they're in the 600s or low 700s. Yes. How can they get themselves up high?
Okay, if you want to know the fastest way to boost your credit score, it's not necessarily the easiest way. It depends on your financial situation. If you have money, it is the easiest way. But 35% of your credit score is paying on time. Everybody knows you got to pay on time. If you miss a payment, you're late, whatever, they're going to ding you. Everybody knows that. The second highest part of your score, which is worth 30%, so almost as much as paying on time, is something called credit utilization ratio. And very few people know what this is. And it's simply just how much of your credit are you using on a percentage basis. So let's say you have a $1,000 credit limit. Okay, you're using $700 of that $1,000 credit limit. Your credit utilization ratio is 70%. And I will tell you, 70% is going to get you dinged pretty hard. The credit bureaus, the credit scores, they want to see you under 10%. 7% is a really good place to be. It doesn't mean you can't ever use your credit over 10%, 20%, 30%. It just means when it's time to go get a loan, go get a car, go get a mortgage, and you want your credit score to be up, there are certain times in your life you need your credit score to be up. That's the biggest hack is like try to pay down some stuff if you can. And you can even, if you had to, like let's say this was a really important interest rate that you wanted to get low because it was going to make a huge difference over time, like a mortgage or something like that. Or let's not use a mortgage, but let's say you just want the interest rate low. You can actually do a loan. So this is kind of weird. You could get a loan to pay down your credit cards, okay? And your credit score will go up. Even though you didn't pay down the money, it's just transferred to this loan, but it's not on your revolving credit card. And so the credit score, the algorithm says, hey, they're under 10%. We like that. Boom, score goes up. So that's probably the biggest hack. There's a 3 more factors, but those are the biggest 2 for sure. Paying on time.
That's so counterintuitive in some sense. It's like it seems like they want you to use the credit cards a bunch, so you would want to naturally spend a lot. But if you're hitting above those certain thresholds, then they're actually dinging you for it. It just doesn't quite make sense to a person on the outside, at least.
Yeah, because they're always trying to figure out, is this person about to go bankrupt or not? Like, so they're looking at patterns that show you're in a bad financial situation. And if you are, they go, okay, don't lend this person credit because they're on the edge. But if you know what to look for, you can make it look like you're in a good financial situation, whether that be the case or not. Because any score, you can kind of game it. Yeah. So like you're saying, if you know the tricks, do what you will.
So I have a maybe a tough question to throw at you. Your love for understanding credit and personal finances is wonderful. How do you respond to I don't know if it's fair to say most, but there is a general thought and belief out there that credit scores, even, Tanner said it, I think unconsciously, it's kind of a game, and it can drastically change the course of someone's life if your credit is bad, right?
Yeah.
And it feels like there's so many things you have to play this game from so many different angles to be able to succeed in the credit game and move up in life and get all these credit cards and all this stuff. How do you handle those kinds of discussions, whether it's with family, friends, people you work with through Vacay, who are kind of just jaded by the American credit score system? I think there's a lot of people who've been burned by it.
Let's be very clear. If you have bad credit, you hate the credit scoring system. Like there's just you think it's a judge of, it's like judging your character, it feels like. But you're like, I'm not a bad person, but you feel like if you have a low credit score, it's equated with your worth as a person. And I always tell people, like, please get that thought out of your head. It's just a score. So do I think the credits? I will tell you, having talked with some of the credit bureaus, like Equifax, there is a lot of discussion around how to build a more complete picture of a user, of a customer. So right now they admit that they don't have enough data to really put together the full picture. They're like looking at these little things, but the algorithm could always be better, and they're always trying to do better. And it's funny, the credit bureaus have they don't really care if they make money whether you have good credit or bad credit. Like, it doesn't matter to them. But what they want is a better reputation with people. Actually, it kind of makes sense. So if a credit bureau asks you for information and you hate credit bureaus and you don't trust credit bureaus, are you going to give them that information? Are you willingly going to give up that information? The answer is probably no. I don't want you to know anything else about me. But what do credit bureaus need to continue to make money and be of value to other businesses that purchase data from them? They need information. And so it is to their business advantage to help people understand how credit works, to help people trust them. They want consumers to like them, because the more they like them, the more data they will give up. And whether that data, people immediately think when somebody's taking your data, they're using it for bad purposes. It's always a bad thing. That's not true. It's like sometimes it's used for very good purposes. So I would look at data in this case as being like really neutral. They just need more of it. And in order to get more of it, they need more trust. And so they're doing a lot to try and build the trust of users. In fact, one of the reasons they liked us was because they saw what we were trying to do and how we were trying to help people understand their credit in a way that like appeals to them. And they're like, this is good. You're going to help teach people more about how credit works. So we like that. So credit scores are not great. They're trying to get better. Of course, there's a better system out there, I'm sure. But are you going to topple the credit bureaus anytime soon? Absolutely not, because people love that simple number. They go for what they know. So good luck trying to change it. So in my opinion, it's an easier battle to work within the system and help people understand how the system works so they can use it to their advantage.
That is a very glass half full answer, and I appreciate that. That's not a negative comment. I feel maybe I'm surrounded by jaded people, but when I have credit conversations, it's usually negative, right? So it's a refreshing perspective on it, that data, that information is to the benefit of the consumer, to those individuals who want to seek out credit.
It can be. If you have good credit, it definitely works to your advantage.
Sure.
And that's where we want to get people, like, get it working for you. So yeah.
Yeah. So let's say that you have good credit now, you do the steps, you get there. So what are some of the common, we won't go into like cards specifically, but what are some of the perks, in general that they offer that you could, kind of pick out, look for, understand, and what do they actually do for you?
Well, I'm going to make it simple. I haven't paid for a flight or a hotel since 2017. I just don't pay for travel. Like, anytime I go somewhere, I have tons of points that are just sitting there waiting to be used. Mind you, I've never been someone who has made, even though I worked in tech sales for a little bit, I've never made a lot of money. I don't spend a lot of money. Like, my whole life is pretty simple. I just know how the system works, how to get points. So what can it do for you? Just imagine, never having to pay for a flight or a hotel room again. And then the only thing you got to do when you get there is like cover your food and your expenses. And we're actually trying to work on a way to get discounts on that because we want to be the complete solution, so we're going to get you free travel and then discounted experiences and food when you get there to really make travel accessible to more people. I do believe travel is a very good thing for a human being, like just to be exposed to different thoughts and ideas and scenery and just everything. It really helps. It really made me grow. I'll tell you that. So yeah,
It's
I don't
also
know if
really
I.
good for just local communities and things as well that are based off
Oh
tourism. There's
yes,
so many people that it affects the tourism business, and we know when like the pandemic hit and all the tourism stopped down, it
yeah.
devastated so many communities that were
Did
reliant on it.
did I tell you where I live right now? I live in Las Vegas, Nevada. So actually wasn't here during the pandemic. I was in Bend, Oregon. I used to live in the Bay Area for like 20 years, but when the pandemic hit, I was like, oh, I'm tired of being in a very small apartment in in the, near San. I wasn't even in San Francisco. I was like an hour away from San Francisco. But then pandemic hit, we were working from home, moved to Bend, Oregon for a year. That was great. We were able to get a place that was 3 times the size of our apartment. We got a house with a garage and like 3 times the size and cost $4 less per month. So that's the Bay Area's its own thing. We were there for a year and then we moved to Las Vegas. And Las Vegas is back, baby. I'll tell you that. So yeah,
You like in Vegas?
I love Vegas. I really
All
do.
right.
You know what I love about this town? People, first of all, nobody's from here. And it's like a huge melting pot. And I just feel like people aren't very pretentious. Like people are just living their lives, just trying to just have a good. By the way, I don't live on the strip. That's a very different experience. I live like in the suburbs, 20 minutes
Sure.
away from the strip. But, you go into a Target, I feel like you can tell a lot about an area by the Target, or the Walmart. So you go into a Target, it's just a bunch of like normal people just shopping versus like I used to live in LA for a bit. It's a fashion show. You can't
It's a vibe.
it's a vibe. It's a vibe. Shout out to LA. Love LA to visit. But yes, I love Vegas. It is, and food, wall to wall food everywhere. It's awesome.
Okay.
So yeah,
All right.
come visit
Well,
sometime.
DJ, we could pick your brains about your love for credit and learn about credit all night long. But we are an entrepreneur founder
Oh,
podcast. So let's
yes.
talk about VacayHQ because we found you on Founders U.
Yes.
We've talked about Founders U on here, so it's no secret to our listeners. Um, let's start there. What brought you to Founders U? And obviously, you're trying to build up a product. You have this knowledge that I'm already convinced 27 minutes into this that your knowledge is exceptional. How did you find Founders U, and what are you hoping to accomplish out of that?
Okay. This is This is going to be definitely a controversial opinion, perhaps. I love J Cal. J Cal is a figure for sure. He is a character. But that man has given away so much great information to founders for at no cost. I watch This Week in Startups all the time. I'm a huge fan of the All In podcast. Like that is what I look forward to every week. And when I found that I was watching This Week in Startups and they had an ad for Founder U and I was like, it's time. So I applied. I got in. And I'm very happy to be there. What do I want to get out of it? Um, it's just being around founders. There's something. Okay, here's the thing about the world, the normal world. The normal world, we celebrate people who have made it off of the assembly line, I guess you could say. Like who have deviated from the normal path. We celebrate them when they make it, but like when you're in that process of leaving the path, everyone thinks you're crazy, and so except other founders. And so I think it's really good to just be around that energy of people doing something different. You know, I love it. So that really motivates me. And of course, there's just nonstop great information. And I'm really not just saying that. Like I love attending the talks. They bring in the best people and I have really great resources. So if you're thinking about doing Founder University, you should definitely do it.
Great plug, absolutely. Tanner and I every week we talk about it after the meeting, the Monday meetings, and then the Thursday office hours. We love them all,
Yep.
and each time we end up like jazz, like pacing in corners, like okay, what can we do next? Because you're right,
Yes.
the knowledge is amazing. The team at launch phenomenal. Of course, Jay Cal's amazing. So that's great to hear. That's great to hear. So let's talk
Yeah.
Vacay. When did Vacay come into existence for you?
Yes. So, 18 months ago, roughly, is when I was talking with my good friend Jackie, and we bonded over how to save the world. Like the name of the meeting was like Jackie and DJ Save the World, right? And we're both personal finance nerds, and so obviously whatever we built was going to have something to do with personal finance. Um, and we wanted to initially like overthrow the credit scores, right? And quickly realized, well, okay, that's going to be a tough battle. Let's try something else. So when we were having our conversations, I was also like having conversations with my little sisters, and it just all came together because my sisters have no reason to respect me, right? Like I'm the dorky older brother. Who cares? But they are so sweet, and I love them to death. But I would tell them about like nerdy personal finance credit stuff, and they would be like, okay, and then they wouldn't do anything. Like most people, there's a difference between knowing what to do and actually doing it. And so when they saw me kind of going on these trips and like they know I don't make a lot of money, so they're like, what's going on? And I was like, I do this with credit card points. And they're like, wait, I want to do this with credit card points. And I'm like, let me show you how. So those conversations all swirling around in my brain is what made me think, okay, if I can one on one talk with someone, explain to them how good credit equals free travel, and kind of see that light bulb go on, and now they're taking action, that's great. But I'm only one person. That's the problem. I'm only one person. How do you scale this up? Well, technology is, generally the answer. And I'm such an entrepreneur. Like, I don't say that with pride. I say that like as a sickness. I just don't know how to. I'm always working on something. My poor significant other's like, why can't you just get a job at Google and be done with it? So when I figured out that credit card companies pay an affiliate fee for everyone who signs up for a credit card, right? And it can be like pretty substantial, like 50, 100, 200, 300, $400. Um, I was like, wait a second, I can build this platform and I don't even have to charge people for it because I never wanted to charge the people who needed the help, right? And so I get to provide this free tool to the world. And this is very similar to Credit Karma. Like it's the same model, except we have a different focus, but it doesn't cost the users anything. And we can provide tons of value. And to me, that's a win-win-win. That's a win for the user. That's a win for our mission at Vacay. That's a win for the credit card companies because they're bringing on new customers. And so, and we're teaching them how to be responsible credit citizens. I can't emphasize that enough. We don't want to put a loaded, like, kind of sword in someone's hand. And I don't think you load swords, but you get what I'm
A
saying.
loaded sword. Yeah,
A
yeah.
loaded sword, you got to watch out for those. Very dangerous. Much more dangerous than a regular sword. You don't want to put that in someone's hand and just be like, all right, have fun. You got to give them some guidance. And that's what we're doing. I mean, I want later, maybe we'll talk about the coaching and all this stuff. But point
Mhm.
is, 18 months ago, Vacay started as a little idea, a lot of risks later. Here we are making the most progress I've probably ever made on an idea. No, uh, there's a strong correlation with how far I've gotten with this idea and how much money I've been willing to spend on it to bring the right people together to help me build it. So one lesson to entrepreneurs is don't like we're not capable of doing everything. Nobody is. I think we're actually designed as human beings to need each other. So no one is whole. And so don't be afraid to bring in people who love that thing that you don't like, and let them do that thing and find all of your missing pieces. And if you believe in your idea, sometimes you just got to take a risk. No one's going to really, if you get lucky, someone might hand it to you, but oftentimes you just got to go for it and believe that it will turn out well. And if not, you have to be okay with that too. You learn something from it. There's all sorts of good things that can come of it, but you just have to be okay with that. So yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, it's very challenging to take an idea and actually execute to build a product. You have to bring a certain set of skills. So what was it you
Yes.
brought to the table, and what did you need to
Oh.
supplement with others? And how did that journey all go for you?
So the team is gonna laugh because and I love our team. I am so fortunate. Here's what I bring to the table: a bunch of crazy ideas. Like I am to the nth degree an innovator, and again, I don't say that like as a source of pride. It's just that's what I naturally do. Is I solve problems in really interesting ways, like unorthodox ways. There's been a lot of personal finance apps, for example, and taking this approach, I haven't really seen anyone do it, like incentivize improving your credit score through connecting it with travel. So this is how my brain works. Here's the problem with that, though. Um, I would say some ideas are good ideas. There's a lot of bad ideas. So I have surrounded myself with people who are really good at research and vetting things. I've also another thing about being me, I don't know if this is true for all like innovators. I am not that great at execution. Like I like thinking about things and then thinking about something else. So I need to be surrounded by people who get things done, who just like thrive on completion. And I have done that. Like we have uh I gotta give him a shout out. Mev. Hello, Mev. Mev, we are complete opposites. Like you see me, I'm like, hey, Mev is business. But that's we get together and we come up with these crazy ideas that get done. So surrounding yourself with the right people is important, and that what I bring to the table is ideas and a great vibe. I think I care so much about culture. I really want people who are doing what they love, and as in the interview process, I'll ask people like, what do you love to do? Like, I know what the job description says. Tell me what like lights your fire, because maybe there's something here that we can connect to that. Um, and if not, like it would be doing them a disservice to bring them on. If they don't love it, they're just gonna like there's some other role in the world that would be perfect for them. And I shouldn't hold them on over here. I should let them go do that thing, because once you find your place, you you're just a different type of performer. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't feel like work in the same way. So everybody on the team loves what they do. They are good at what they do, and they have a great attitude. So that's
Yeah.
kind of what I'm looking for. And yeah, culture is something I try to help maintain.
Yeah, it's really hard to build a good team. How do you go about finding good people?
Upwork. It's that
Okay,
simple.
I love it.
I've met most of the team through Upwork. I've had a few like recommendations, but mostly they you put up a good, and by good I just mean don't put up like a dry job post. I mean, like these are other people on the side. There are people on the other side of that post, and talk to people like a real person. So I'll put up very like honest posts. Like I put up a post when we were looking for a project manager, but I called it a progress manager because I really wanted some people around me to help me make progress. And I was like, here are all the things I'm bad at. Are you good at these things? Let's talk. So you bring people on and you just have a conversation with them. And for me, I don't know if everybody has the capability to do this, but like I can generally catch people's vibe pretty quickly, and I'm also incredibly trusting. So I think it seems dangerous, right? Like to just be super trusting, but you trust, but you also verify. You've probably heard that before, trust and verify. So like I do one interview with people and I'm like, all right, come on in. But if they're not performing, I'm really direct and like honest, because I'm like, if you're not performing, it probably means you don't love it, which probably means you should be doing something else. Go do what you love. And then I try to encourage them to go do that. So, um, I don't know. That's my way of finding, I don't make a big to do out of it. I just put up an ad, do some interviews, grab some people, and we get to work.
Awesome. So
Yeah.
18 months to today.
Hmm.
How's VacayHQ doing? What kind of traction are you seeing?
Oh, we launch in Ooh, we're gonna launch in about 2 weeks, so this is pretty
Yeah.
exciting. According to
I've
Mev, who
I'm on your website, and it's beautiful website. Really love
Thank
it. And
you.
I see your wait list. Are you getting some good interaction with that wait list?
Oh, that's so funny. So if you look at the traction we've gotten from the wait list, you would think we were failing as a company because I don't really drive a lot of traffic to that wait list and we don't do a lot of marketing. I'm not someone who likes to promote themselves. Like I'm pretty, believe it or not, I'm super introverted and like I have this thing where I only like helping people. I don't really like talking about, me. I want to help you. So if you look at the wait list, pretty low. I have a financial education nonprofit called the AFE Society. You can go to the AF, I think it's is it the A? Yeah, the AFEsociety.org. Don't worry about it. Like we'll put the link in the show notes or something. But that I do free financial coaching through there, right? I've done like 140 sessions in the last 18 months. Yeah. So I'm always having these sort of user interviews, if you will, because we're talking. I want to know what's important to people, what's missing, like how can I help them? So we have a long list of people to reach out to. They just didn't come through the sign up page. Yeah.
That's a really cool funnel. We've talked with several interviews now, and we really find that some of the people who just, you can tell their passions in it, that they're going somewhere with it. It always, every single time, stems from a genuine. Everyone says they want to help people when they start a product or a service, but the people who genuinely show the passion of, I want to provide value to someone. Those are the people you can see the spark in their eye, and you're like, this person's going to make it. It's not just about, I want to be a millionaire software developer, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's about, I want to do something that someone finds incredibly valuable and could even change their life. Because let's be honest, going from a low 600 to an 800 credit score, that's a life-changing thing.
Yep.
And you're doing that already with consulting and these one-on-ones. So let's talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
You do this through the AFE Society.
Mm-hmm.
How did you start doing the individual meetings, the individual consulting with
Oh,
them?
so one of the best bits of advice I've probably ever heard came from Mev recently. If I look back at my story, it's like, oh, that was totally true. So the thing he told me, and he will tell you, he didn't make this up, but he's the first person to say it to me, which was, you become what you repeatedly do. You become what you repeatedly do. Now, on the surface, that seems really simple, but if you look at what I did to become who I am, I just started helping people. Like, it wasn't like I went out and did, okay, I got to go through like 4 years of school and all this stuff. Like, I already had the knowledge because I was reading these books all the time. And like, even before I worked in wealth management, because I worked in wealth management for like 11 months before I realized I was like, this is not for me. Nice people, but not for me. Um, I knew I had the knowledge, and so the only thing that would have held me back was like this belief that I wasn't ready, I guess, like I didn't have enough credentials behind my name. Oh, the website's not perfect enough. Nope, I made a Calendly and just started telling people like, hey, if you have any credit questions, here's my Calendly. Like, feel free to book, put time on my calendar. I'll talk to you anytime. And people just started putting time on my calendar. And I remember when I first started doing this, thinking to myself, how cool would it be if people came to me when they had credit questions? Like, I want to be that. I like, there's somebody struggling to think of the solution to their problem right now, like as it relates to personal finance. They're struggling. And how cool would it be if they would be, oh, I know who to call, DJ. Let me just give him a call or put some time on his calendar. But I was like, at the time, nobody really knew me as that except for like a few people who were nearby. But if you just start doing the thing, I have now become the thing. I am that person I hoped to be back in the day. Now people know me as like the credit guy. Oh, you got your questions about credit or travel hacking? Go to DJ. And that's what it became over time. So I hope that inspires someone out there. Just start doing it, even though it's not perfect and everything's not pristine and in the right place. Just start, and you'll be surprised.
Yeah, love it. So, according to Mev, in 2 weeks, you guys are going live. Can you
Yeah.
kind of describe what's a user could experience? They sign up, how much they might expect to pay for things.
Hmm.
What steps are they going to go through on your site?
So when you sign up, we will have a partnership with Equifax. That's going to take longer, 2 weeks. Oh, this is another good point. So don't launch when you feel like you're ready. Okay. If you've waited until you're ready, you probably launched too late, right? So we're going to put out our ugly baby photos, as they're called. Like we're going to, because what I realized about this is if you put out something that you tell people is good and perfect, they won't give you feedback on it. They'll be like, "Oh, it is nice. Oh, look at that pretty baby." So we're telling people like, "Oh, this is going to be rough." Well, it's going to work, but it's going to be rough. So please tell us how it could be better. So eventually we'll have Equifax and we can plug in and you can get your Equifax credit score. Right now, we're just going to have you tell us your credit score. We're going to have you fill out your travel preferences. Again, what type of hotels do you like to stay at? What airlines do you like to fly? And then our algorithms, it's just going to tell you which credit cards to get. It's going to say, get this credit card now. In 3 months after you hit the sign up bonus, get this credit. And we'll talk about sign up bonuses too here in a second, because that's kind of the hack behind travel hacking. Get this credit card, then get this credit card, then get this credit card, then get this credit card. Eventually, we have grand plans, but it's not going to start there. It's going to be pretty simple. But even that, believe it or not, this is going to sound crazy. Even that makes us the most sophisticated credit card recommendation tool on the planet. Like just asking those things, yeah, we're already like the best you can get, which is not saying that we're amazing. It's just saying that the bar is set pretty low. So we're like, let's hop on over that. Yeah. So then there's no cost, of course, to anyone.
That's so cool. I have to say I've never heard of anyone starting their customer funnel with Calendly. So I feel like you've got the making of a very interesting business book in a couple of years. But you just did it. You went out to genuinely add value. You said, "Hey, I need to scale this, and how can we do this?" And you came up with VacayHQ, and then you built a team around you who supported your weaknesses. And then you joined Founders U, and Tanner and I are testaments to Founders U. Just amazing knowledge. We'll plug
Yeah.
Founders U for the next cohorts any day, every day. And then you launch in 2 weeks. 18 months ago, did you think you'd be here?
I thought I would have. I thought I would have been here sooner. That's yeah. I was like, oh
Okay.
God, 18 months. Like
I
people are
love
gonna
that
think.
confidence.
I just figured it can't be that hard. But that's the cool thing about being a dreamer is like you're naive, and that's almost your strength, because you just will things to happen that you believe can happen. It may not happen on your timeline, but if you still are passionate about what you're doing, you just keep taking down one barrier after another, solving one problem after another, and putting one foot in front of the other. But yes, if you had told me it would take 18 months to get here, I'd be like, what can I do to speed it up? To answer that question, by the way, because I am constantly reflecting on what I could do to be better as a founder, I didn't, I made the, first of all, I made the classic mistake to begin with, which was to just have an idea in your head and then go hire someone to build it. No research, no talking to anybody, just like, I know what people want. And got a really great team together. We built something. I never even launched it because by the time like it was out, I was like, I don't know, and started over. So that was money. Um, and money I didn't have, by the way. And I cannot wait to tell you about how I'm funding this business because I look at my life and this story as encouragement to others. Like, so we'll get to that in a second. But suffice to say, I made a lot of mistakes as a founder. The one mistake that I didn't make, and I think this is as long as you don't make this mistake, you can recover from a lot of other mistakes. Just be good to people. Like, don't you don't need to let fear dictate your actions. Like, share, honor your word. Like just have a good reputation because it really smooths over a lot of shortcomings. Like, I have a ton of shortcomings. Like, I forget stuff. I'm just all sorts of things like classic founder like uh I'm a space cadet, I guess you could say. But I try my hardest to treat people like I would want to be treated, and I tell you what, that has gotten me further than just about anything else. And being excited about what you're working on, people pick up on that enthusiasm. So if you love what you're doing and you're a nice person, people will help you. So that's why we haven't gotten there as fast as I would have liked because I'm not perfect, but we're still going, and that's amazing to me. If you would have told me, listen, you're not gonna be ready 18 months later, but you're still going to be going, I'd be like, how are we going to still be going? I don't have enough money to have us go for 18 months. Like, so it needs to happen faster. But we're still here. And that brings me to how in the world are we still here? This is where I really want people to hear this. Um, I told you, I've never made a lot of money. I don't have like a friends and family network. And shout out to those who do. If you do, use it. It's part of your, I think if you have all these great resources and benefit, just like people in your life that can help, that's a sign that there's a responsibility attached to that to do something good for the world with what you've been given. And even if you have nothing, there's somebody you can be good to. There's some gift that you have that you can share with others. So didn't have a lot of money. I would take what little money I had kind of left over in my check and put that on. I was like, I'm not going to use credit cards for this. I'm just going to like pay cash. And so we'll go a little bit slower, but I'll pay cash. Eventually I was like, well, I'm going to start using credit cards because we're not moving fast enough. So I started using credit cards and I was like, I get the points. So that's nice. But like I have plenty of runway if I just use this like one credit card. Nope, that credit card got maxed out. Then I got another credit card and another credit card and another credit card and another and another and another and another and another. I think I'm probably up to like 9 credit cards now. So I have completely funded this business with credit cards. And now I'm not even using personal or business. I've moved into personal credit cards. Why? This sounds like the ramblings of a crazy person. Why in the world would someone who knows so much about personal finance take these crazy financial risks? And what I'm here to tell you is that it's not a risk. Not for me. I don't have a family. I don't own a house. Like I've always had really like low expenses and all that stuff. What that means is that what's the worst thing that can happen to me? Like what's the thing people fear? If you get too much debt, go ahead. You could say it. What is it? What do you
Bankruptcy.
Bankruptcy. Yes, bankruptcy. Oh, bankruptcy. So I went and studied bankruptcy because if you're afraid of something, you're going to remain afraid of it until you understand it. And then you have to ask yourself, well, one of the most powerful questions you can ask yourself as a founder is like, what's the worst that could happen? And sometimes there's some really terrible things that could happen. But when I looked at this situation, I was like, well, my credit score would be bad for 2 years, but all my debt would go away. I have no intention of declaring bankruptcy, but if I did, it's not that bad. So here are my options. Don't go for it. Don't go for building the thing that I think could make the world a better place and like makes me excited to get up in the morning. Don't do that and play it safe. Or take this risk and maybe it fails and maybe I have a bad credit score for 2 years and then I recover. Like to me, it wasn't the risk that I had thought it was going to be. So I was just like, I'm going to rack up as much debt as I possibly can. It's a race to funding, I would say. Are we going to get funding before I run out of runway? And my runway is only dictated by how much I can continue to get credit. So I still kind of watch my credit score a little bit, and it's like 740 something right now. It used to be closer to 8, but as I put on more debt onto my personal credit, like my score drops a little bit. So it is a race against time, but it's almost exciting because there's no real danger in it. It's not like my life is like in jeopardy. So to founders out there, weigh the risks. If you have something in you that you think could be a blessing to the world, like, and not much to lose, the biggest risk to me is being like 80 years old and wondering like, what if I had tried? Oh, you can't get that time back. So go for it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I had a piece of advice told to me a while ago, and it was never do anything that will essentially divide by zero. Because if you divide by zero, you lose everything. It's zero. And you took what, with someone would think that's the end game, bankruptcy or this thing. And you realized you understood and you're like, no, it's not a divide by zero. It's just a slight dip down. So you're
It's a
just
temporary
leveraging it.
setback. And I'll go get a job for a little bit. That's what uh as an entrepreneur, again, I say that not as a praise, but like as something a condition. This is the cycle. Like you try something, it fails, you go get a job, like a real job. You try something, it fails, you go re-up, go get a real job, get some more money in the bank, get a little bit more runway. And if you do that enough times and you're learning every single time, I mean, I do believe eventually things will work out. Now, here's the thing about my life in particular that made me say, I'm definitely willing to take this risk. I am 39 years old. I do not have a family. I have a wonderful significant other, but I feel like my greatest contribution to Earth will be being a dad. Like, I think I can't wait to be a dad one day. I can't have kids because my significant other is like, oh, no way we're getting married until you get stable. Like, she values stability. And I value like freedom to try out my ideas. So we made a deal. We said, she was like, listen, go for it on this one. Just go for it. And if it doesn't work out, you know what, there's always a job waiting for you somewhere. And the irony is I'll probably make, as a founder, you kind of fail up. This is something I've realized. Like, if you're a founder and you go apply to a tech company when it's not, like a recession, um, they love founders. It says something about you. So I would probably be able to get a job in like product management or something, making way more than I've ever made, twice as much as I've ever made in my whole life. So that's what failure looks like for me. So I'm going for it. If it works out, I get to get married. I get to have a child. If it doesn't, I'll get a job and then get married and have a child. So,
What a cool outlook. And you hit on something really important that I think another key common topic we find on this podcast is, we talk to a lot of founders, obviously through our interviews, but our audience is kind of also a subsection of those people who want to be, we have this theory, everyone has a great idea, but it's very easy to talk yourself out of going for it. And you hit on something really key there, is that it's very easy to catastrophize a failure. Oh my gosh, if I go all in on this, I'll lose this, I'll lose that, my whole life will be ruined. You know what? You're speaking to me a little bit right now. I'm thinking, man, maybe you're kind of making mountains out of molehills in problems that don't even exist yet. And stressing yourself out and talking yourself out of potentially amazing things. So great knowledge, DJ. Yeah. This is really cool.
Yeah, we've talked on the podcast too about this before, but have you ever heard of the region beta paradox?
Ooh, I have not. Enlighten me.
So it's a concept where if you picture, like, a practical application is, you picture someone, if they are traveling a distance, let's say up to a mile, they'll walk. But if it's greater than a mile, they'll ride their bike. Mm-hmm. So there is a point in which if the destination is like just shy of a mile, it's going to take them significantly longer to get there than if it was just slightly over a mile, because there's this tipping point for taking action and being a little bit more efficient. So in our lives, we often keep ourselves in this kind of comfort zone where we're not pressured enough or have enough incentive to take action. So by one, putting that financial responsibility on yourself, and two, having that personal change that you're promised, I'm going to get married, I'm going to have a kid, I'm going to do these things. So this is my moment to put that pain upon me and put that pressure on me and execute and deliver. Yeah. It's actually a great tactic, because that's what drives action, is doing that.
I love it. What was that paradox called again?
The region beta paradox.
The region beta paradox. I love that. Yeah. It's something to remember is, and this is my personal belief, but I do believe everyone has a gift inside of them. Like, you were born with something that's just it's going to be with you for the rest of your life, whether you decide to use it or not. And you know what it is, because when you use it, it lights up people's lives in some way, right? The gift that's inside of you is supposed to be a gift to those around you, to the world. If you have that gift inside of you, right? I believe that there is a way for that gift to be expressed. Like, in other words, if you go for it, and you stick with it, and your faith is greater than your fear, because fear is lurking around every corner. But if you just keep at it, I think that gift was meant to get out of you. It was meant to be given to the world. But you have to go through something to give it. Like, you can't just wake up one morning and everything works out, because how do you grow as a human being from that? Like, you have to learn that you're going to be okay. I think that's something that I've learned from, like, all the failures I've had, is that it's almost a gift in a way to fail, because you realize you survive. Like, there'll be another day and you can try again. So you stop fearing failure as much. I remember when I was like I was like a smart kid. I'm not saying I'm smart these days, but like, sometimes kids are like smart when they're young. And I used to hate to fail. Um, and then so I went to Stanford, which was I'm around like super gifted people, right? And I failed a lot there. That school taught me how to like not be as good as everybody else and be okay with that and just learn to find my own lane. But before, it was a curse to win at everything because you don't know how to deal with failure. You don't even know what failure really feels like. So you just are afraid of it and you will do everything in your power to not fail. But here's the thing, there's never going to be a time there's never going to, you're going to fail at some point. If you don't fail, you're not trying. So what it ends up doing to people who are like really gifted when they're younger is it creates something in them that says, I will only do things that I know I can be good at. And if I don't know how this is going to turn out for me, I'm probably not going to try it because you know what? I don't need it. Like, I'm going to stay in my lane. That is dangerous, I think. So failure's not the end of the world. You kind of like just learn to tuck and roll, and hop back
Yeah.
up. So anyway, yeah.
Yeah. You get stuck in that first part of that region beta. There's just not enough to quite drive action. And
Yeah.
it's one of the unique things that I've learned recently is just about why we have pain, and it's to cause action. And the amount of pain that you have is the amount of action that
Yes.
you'll take respond to. If you just have a little bit of pressure on you, you might move your hand slowly. But
Yeah.
if you accidentally step on a nail, you're going to move very fast, and you're going to
It's a
do
great
so with
analogy.
all of your force. So
Mm-hmm.
again, I just go back to, you've jumped all in on this business and you've put everything out there. And so, yeah, I'm going to win or I'm going to lose, but losing isn't everything. It's not,
I'm gonna
failing's not a
learn
terrible
either
thing.
way.
Yeah.
And if you think about your life, it's just a series of moments, right? And the more moments you can be excited about what you're doing, the more you're winning in life, right? So, in other words, if you're doing something you love, who knows how who knows how it's going to turn out? What I know is that all the moments leading up to the finale were were the ride I wanted to be on, So, in my opinion, just those moments are what matter. So do what you love because life, gosh, if you do it you don't love, I don't know how you could wake up every day. It's like pretty discouraging to get up and go to like a job that you're just like, oh, here we go again. So break free.
Well, DJ, I feel like I could talk to you forever, man. You have such a fresh,
Oh,
positive spin on, honestly, being a founder can be a slug through the swamp, man. It can be rough, and your perspective is really refreshing. I love your positivity, and your passion is outstanding and palpable. But with that said, we're nearing the end of our time here, DJ. So what is your final message to the crowd, to the group, to us, and then also, where can we find you? Where would you like people to find you and to learn more about you and Vacay?
my message to everyone, and this is tied to what I honestly believe is my like one of my greater purposes here on earth is to encourage others to pursue their purpose. So if you're around me, I'm going to find out real quick what it is you love to do and then be like, well, let's figure out a way to do that thing. And most of the time it comes down to being willing to be okay with uncertainty. A lot of people really want to be certain of what's going to happen if they take that next step. And it some of the best things in life really don't happen that way. So learn to get comfortable with uncertainty and with being uncomfortable a little bit. Um, so that would be my advice to everyone because that gift you have inside of you, the world needs it. And for every person we lose to a cubicle, not to say that some people aren't meant to be in cubicles and God bless them, like it's not for me, but thank you for those who it is their calling. But to every person who doesn't follow their dream, I feel like the world loses something from that. So I hope you'll listen to that voice inside um and go for it. You'll be surprised at the resources that rally around you as you start moving and taking one step after the other. Um, where can you find me? So the afesociety.org is literally just a redirect to my Calendly page. It's just so go if you have questions about credit, personal finance, just go book a time. It gets booked up sometimes, but there will be a slot. Grab one. I'm always happy to talk with you all. And then if you want to do some travel hacking conversations, again, this is all free. You can go to VacayHQ.com, sign up on the wait list, which also has my Calendly. I just try to make myself really available because I love these conversations, right? So go book time on my Calendly. I will talk to you all about how travel hacking works, and we'll get you on your trip wherever it is you want to go. I'm confident we can get there. And then in a few weeks, be on the lookout for the very, very beta MVP launch of VacayHQ.com. Please give us your feedback. It will not be perfect, and we want to hear how we could be better. So that's where you can find me.
Fantastic. Well, DJ, thank you so much for joining us. It's been just an amazing conversation. I've learned a lot that I didn't know about credit scores, the history of that, and the whole deal. So really appreciate the time that you've given us. For everyone who's still listening or watching our videos, make sure to like, subscribe to our feeds, reach out to us, whether it be from the comment section, email, social media, anything like that. We'd love to hear from you. We're also trying to improve our ugly baby picture that is this podcast, and doing so a little bit better each week. So we're really appreciative for everyone who's listened, and we'll see you all next week. Bye.
Bye.